had this meeting, I had sent in advance a briefing similar to the one that I provided here. This is the one I provided for President Obama through John Podesta, who, as you know, set up the Obama administration. What I was astonished and appalled to learn is that the first document that I have in this document is a National Reconnaissance Office document that has actionable intelligence listing project code names and code numbers effective as of the early 90s. This admiral, Tom Wilson, looked through this document, identified one of the compartments, contacted them, and was told, and I'm quoting, "Sir, you do not have a need to know." Now, this is the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And he said to the person, it was a contractor, I cannot disclose which one, he said that basically, "Sir, we will not discuss this with you further," and basically hung up on the admiral. This I will testify under oath before any. Now, because of that event, we then wrote a, unless otherwise directed letter. My military advisor said, "Dr. Greer, what you need to do is do a UNOD letter that goes to all branches of government that says that we have concluded that this subject is being managed in an extra-constitutional fashion. A priori, the National Security Act no longer applies to those under those oaths, and they are hereby exonerated or freed from them." We wrote such a letter to the heads of all agencies. It was never contested, and the way unless otherwise directed letter works is that unless you hear back from the agency, you are allowed to proceed with your assessment. And our assessment was that we were going to go forward with these men and women and documents. In fact, there was a senior CIA official who I've been asked not to name, who's still in the science directorate of the CIA, who said, "Please do this for our nation." At that point, we began to gather together more of these so-called witnesses. They've been called now. I call them patriots who want to have the truth out. And we then did the 2001 disclosure project in this ballroom, and we're about at our 12-year anniversary of that. And I organized that for the purpose of getting the public informed and also Congress. There were tens of thousands of petitions sent to members of Congress and faxes asking for hearings. Unfortunately, a few months later, 9/11 happened. The day before 9/11, I will make no further comments on that, except to say on September 11th. September 10th, you will see tonight in our film Sirius, if you come to see it at 8 o'clock, that there was a memo from a comment, I should say, in a speech by then Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld, who stated that there is $2.3 trillion unaccounted for in the Department of Defense budget. Let me repeat that number, $2.3 trillion. This was on September 10th, 2001. Now, prior to that, I was not surprised at that comment, because back in 1994, I had a meeting with Mr. D'Amato, not the senator, who was the chief counsel for the Senate Appropriations Committee, and he informed me that they felt that there was upwards of or in excess of $100 billion a year missing out of the Treasury going into so-called black projects. Now, this is a misnomer, just so that the committee knows. The proper term in the military and intelligence world is an unacknowledged special access project. Now, special access projects are projects that, of course, you have to be read into with various clearances. The unacknowledged ones are ones for which there is no acknowledgement on paper, and anyone in the project is ordered not to speak about it under threat of termination with extreme prejudice, which is death. My senior military advisor was in one such project. He has not even informed me what it concerned. It was under Admiral Harry Train. It was a $3 billion project. This is one project that was unacknowledged. So this is not a theory. This is how the deep national security state actually operates, that the members of Congress usually are not aware of. Now, in the ensuing years, since 2001, we have continued these briefings. We've had greater success in other countries. There are now more than 14 countries that have opened their UFO files. We've been very instrumental in this. I've worked with people at the Vatican, the French government. And what is also very exciting is that one of the most important documents in history, which I'll provide to the committee, is a document from the Ministry of Defense of France committing to my organization to engage in a long-term project to make peaceful contact with these quote-unquote visitors. This document has not been yet released. I will provide it to the committee, and there is great progress being made in other countries. Admiral Morin, who won the Ampere Prize in France and is an MD, as I am, and also a PhD physicist, and has been an advisor and was an advisor to President Sarkozy and others, has been meeting with us, and we have been involved with projects in other countries to do this. I will tell you, however, that as they began to step into this, they were warned off by someone within the national security state saying, do not pursue this. And so we went to France about 3 years ago, and we had an expedition to actually make contact with these extraterrestrial civilizations. And the Admiral later informed us that their radar tracked objects that came over the site at between 100,000 and 200,000 kilometers an hour. Now, what is fascinating about this is that the French were not deterred from doing this project with us, but they have to date remained fairly quiet. There is, therefore, progress being made in other G7 countries. As you know, we have a former Minister of Defense of Canada here who is very supportive, the Honorable Paul Hellyer. And what we find, however, is that the United States has remained a black hole of secrecy. Now, the reason for this is complex. One of the reasons is inertia. Once you go into an unacknowledged special access project, it's very hard to bring things out. Number two is that this is the crown jewel in America of the defense industry and the aerospace industry. My uncle was a senior project engineer at Grumman that became Northrop Grumman that put the first man on the moon with the lunar module. He worked on the lunar module, which is part of how I got involved with this. What I have found through my uncle and other contacts at Lockheed is that we have had, since about the mid-1950s, operational electromagnetic gravitic devices, basically in parlance of the pop culture anti-gravity devices that are deeply classified and are the next generation beyond rockets and jet aircraft. These are fully operational and not experimental. These have been used very discreetly. We have an enormous amount of information on this, including a facility, Norton Air Force Base, where we had Frank Carlucci, the Secretary of Defense for Ronald Reagan, was ushered in there, and some people who were with him, such as Brad Sorensen, have given us information and actually have helped us provide schematics and drawings for these so-called alien reproduction vehicles, a bit of a misnomer because in reality advanced anti-gravity research began with T. Townsend Brown in 1929. We'll get more into this on Friday. The key point here is that the technologies that would give us a new civilization without oil, without gas, without coal, without nuclear power are extant. They already exist, they've been developed, and it is a matter of the utmost national security and world peace and justice that we bring these sciences out and start a new chapter in the human experience. Thank you.